Living a healthy, balanced life is no small feat, especially when you're a mom. With meals to cook, laundry to load, work to do, and humans to raise, it can be easy to feel like we're in an on-again, off-again relationship with healthy living. But it doesn't have to feel this way. I believe living a healthy life has become way too complicated. What we need isn't a new plan or program telling us what to eat or how to live. We need simple, uncomplicated routines and information that's going to help us live our best, most beautiful life without rules and restrictions. Join me, Kristin Dovbniak, holistic health coach, certified intuitive eating counselor, and mama of two, for weekly conversations on what it means to live a healthy, balanced life, uncomplicate eating, and simplify in every area of mom life. Hey friends, welcome back to the Healthy Blanced Mama Podcast. I am so excited to be recording the very first episode of season 4 of the podcast for all of you. It is mid-July right now, and I just finished 12 days of a full-on break from my business. Now, I did a lot of brainstorming during that time, but during that time, I was completely off of social media. I wasn't answering emails. I took time off from recording podcast episodes, and I just took some time to relax and to be with my family, to hang out with my kids, to go camping with my husband. And it was so good. But I'm also really excited to be back as well. I'm so excited to be recording the episode that's going to launch in just a couple weeks to kick off season 4. I can't believe this little podcast baby is turning 4. It's really only been 3 years that I've been doing this podcast. Not quite 3 years, I guess like 2 3/4 years since I started this podcast, but it has grown and evolved so much as I have over the last several years. And I'm so excited about what it has been, what it is going to become, and everything that is in store for season 4. I feel like every time I get behind the mic, I get more and more excited to talk to the new guests, to share the things that I'm learning or the things that I'm so excited to share with all of you. And I think every single season, I've become more and more clear on what I want this podcast to be and the message or messages that I want to share with the women that I reach, with you, my listeners, on this podcast. And what's so interesting is this was a podcast that I was very intentional going into the podcast, really, really excited and inspired to talk about finding balance when it comes to food specifically. So talking a lot about my journey with intuitive eating and talking a lot about my journey as I became an intuitive eating counselor and was working as a holistic health coach, really sharing with you not only that journey and what I was learning, what I was working with clients on, and really passing on the knowledge that I had received and really wanting to pass that on to all of you. I was very intentional about the first season of the podcast being very much about intuitive eating and bringing on guests who have gone through the ringer, gone through the journey of finding freedom with food and going beyond this place of restriction and dieting or eating disorders, disordered eating, whatever they had gone through with food, with fitness, with body image. And I was very intentional about it being pretty focused on that in the first season. And that's something that I will always be passionate about. For those of you who have listened to my story, really episodes 1 through 5 very much outlined my story in different ways, everything from food and finding balance with food, my eating disorders, and then disordered eating and fitness competitions and finding balance with all of that. And I'm actually going to be doing a kind of food freedom 5 years later episode coming up in the next few weeks that I'm excited to share with all of you, to kind of share with you how I've grown and evolved since then. Because if you've been a listener for any time, you know that my journey has changed so much in the last couple of years and only in positive ways. I think food freedom was really the gateway to be able to, I think, just focus on so many other things in my life that I'm so passionate about and things that I didn't know I ever wanted to learn about or to share about with my audience, with my listeners, with my community. And I don't think I really understood how much I would love the community aspect of having a podcast and getting DMs from you guys every single week, sharing with me how much you're loving this episode or that episode, or this helped you, or this older episode helped you, or you're so excited about this guest coming up when I kind of do some of those teasers, which I need to do more of on social media, on Instagram. I'm at Healthy Mama Chris if you're a brand new listener over on Instagram. And I was really intentional about that in the first season. And then the second season, I started feeling really drawn towards just kind of expanding that topic a little bit more, as that will always be something that I love and want to share about, and sharing my journey and other women's journeys to finding freedom with food, because I believe that when it comes to food, that balance is key, but that it looks different for all of us, and we can have freedom with food and still honor our bodies really, really well. And in season 2, I very much wanted to bring in some more experts on chronic health conditions and topics that I don't think are talked about enough in the intuitive eating world, and can sometimes make those of us who do struggle from those type of things feel a little bit isolated from intuitive eating, and maybe feel like it's not for us, or maybe feel like food freedom doesn't always feel so free if we're dealing with things that I've dealt with, like digestive issues or hormonal imbalances, and being told that it's okay to, and really helpful to change our food and our lifestyle in order to heal these things. But then on the other side of things going, well, can I do that and still have freedom with food? Can I do that and still be a quote unquote intuitive eater? And so I wanted to bring more of that into the podcast in season 2. And then when we came into season 3, I was so excited and inspired by this idea of balance in every area of our lives. So I dove headfirst into season 3, wanting to talk about even more topics, everything from pregnancy and postpartum, the nutrition aspect, and then we talked about topics that were really difficult. We talked about social justice, and we talked about miscarriage, and we also talked about finding balance in mom life. We talked about finding balance with homeschool and creativity as a mom with Lori Beth Aldridge, and we talked about really creating peace and productivity in your life with Sarah Dalton. Those are 2 brand new topics, in addition to all of the food freedom and intuitive eating and kind of prenatal, postpartum topics that I had kind of already started to bring into the podcast. And then we brought in some guests talking about kids nutrition. We had Joy McCarthy talking about holistically healthy kids, and we had Crystal Kargas come on and talk to us about intuitive eating with kids and how to deal with sugar. And we had Megan McNamee from Feeding Littles come on and talk about baby-led weaning, which is essentially intuitive eating for babies. And I loved every single guest that we had on in the last several seasons, and I learned so much from each and every one of them. And I'm so excited to move forward into season 4 with much of the same mindset as I had in season 3. And really wanting to continue to share about the topics of finding balance in food and fitness, but also expand into remembering that as moms, we are whole, holistic beings. It's not just about food and fitness that makes us healthy. It is about finding balance in our lives and whatever that looks like for us. I introduced season 3 talking about redefining this idea of balance, and I was talking very much about food. But what's really interesting is in my life in the last year, I have gone through what has been the hardest year of my entire life for many, many reasons. And there's, some of it I'm ready to talk about, and some of it I'm still not quite ready to talk about. But we've gone through a lot in our family, in our little family unit and in my greater family unit. We've lost several people in our family. We have gone through just a lot of changes and a lot of hard things and a lot of hard decisions. And it's been a lot in this last year. And I think the guests that I've had on the podcast and the ways that I was able to connect with people that I might not have been able to connect with before if I didn't have this sort of a platform was really unique. And I'm just so very grateful for it, because I think now more than ever before, I understand what it means to have balance in your life. And it seems so silly to say that and so funny to admit that, being as this is the Healthy Balanced Mama podcast. And my goal has been to share and to bring others sharing about balance from the very beginning. But I think I really, truly understood the meaning of balance and the ebb and flow of balance in our lives, because I've always maintained that balance is never static when it comes to our food, when it comes to our fitness, when it comes to our lives as a whole. It's not meant to always look the same, but it's about looking for balance in each and every season. And that's the question that I've actually been asking at the end of each podcast episode. I used to ask people, my tagline for many, many years for Healthy Mama Kris was "Find your beautiful balance." And I still love that so much. But especially during COVID and everything that kind of went on in 2020, this season that we were in was vastly different than seasons that any of us had been in years past. And so I kind of switched the question a little bit and I started asking people what balance looked like in this season. And for me, I think this was really helpful and encouraging, just to remind myself every single time I ask that question that balance does change in every single season. And I've had to rediscover my balance and redefine what balance looks like for me several times in the last year, or really the last year and a half. When it came to food, you guys heard me talk about my digestive struggles last year. I had an incredible episode, one of my top episodes from last season, or I guess it was season 2, at the end of season 2 with Catherine Herbison. She is just a fantastic friend, former intuitive eating coach herself. She's the former co-host of the Embracing Balance podcast. And she is just such a light to women who are struggling with digestive issues, because she's been going through a lot of digestive issues over the last couple of years. And we got on and we really shared about what it's like to be in the world of intuitive eating and also be struggling with digestive issues. And I also shared my own digestive health story in that season as well. And that, I really had to redefine what balance looked like for me with food, because food freedom stopped feeling so free for me for a period of time, especially when I was dealing with these really, really bad digestive issues. And then this past year, I started dealing with some hormonal issues, which I talked about. I'll link these episodes in the show notes as well, so you guys can listen to them if you're curious. But I shared kind of my whole hormone health journey in season 3 as well, because I started getting some hormonal symptoms come back up again, which was no surprise to me with all the stress at the beginning of the year. I have polycystic ovary syndrome, and so stress is something that very quickly affects my hormones. And so I was starting to feel some symptoms from that, and needing to change some things with my food and lifestyle was really necessary in order to come back to balance. And I can tell you now that I'm happily in a fantastic place of balance when it comes to the food that I eat and the way that I move. And I feel incredible. I feel the best that I have in the last 2 years. And so much of that is thanks to being able to talk to the guests on this podcast, being able to expand my view of what food freedom looks like, what intuitive eating looks like, what balance looks like as a whole, and embrace what that looks like for me in this season, and allow that to change each season. The way that I'm eating and the way that I'm moving and the way that our life looks right now is vastly different than it did a few months ago. A few months ago, or just a couple months ago, I was homeschooling and trying to run my business at the same time. My youngest was only going to school, or she's going to school twice a week. Now, my oldest daughter is in camp right now, and my youngest is in school today, but she's only going to school 1 day a week right now. But they're both going to go to school, my oldest for 5 days in the fall, which is a decision we made a couple months ago. She really, really, really missed her friends. And as much as I enjoyed homeschooling, and we still might homeschool in the future, depending on what our life looks like, which I'll give you guys a little bit of an update on in a couple of minutes. But she really missed her friends. And I don't think any of us really, none of us, I don't think, could predict how long the pandemic was going to go or how much it was going to affect our day-to-day lives. And I could not, when I jumped into the world of homeschooling at the beginning of the year, I was so excited for it, and I was so excited for everything that we were going to be able to do together. And we got to do a lot of those things there was a lot of things we didn't get to do either, just because there were so many restrictions. So much was closed. We spent so much time inside, just the two of us. And though I really, really loved the time I got to spend with Sage in these last 9 months or so homeschooling, it was also really difficult because she couldn't see a lot of her friends. We had our one family that we would homeschool with once a week. And, sometimes we would, sometimes we wouldn't. There were times where we had to quarantine because, we were around somebody who could have possibly had it and them the same. And it was just, it was not the homeschool year that we had hoped for. And so Sage was very, very adamant about wanting to go back to public school in the fall. And so we said, okay, we totally honor that. And so it's going to be completely different as we come into September as well. It's going to look really different. My business looks vastly different now than it did even just 6 months ago. I've made a lot of changes in the last year, many of which I talked about in A Season for Change. That episode I will also link down below. And I shared my heart about really feeling called away from working as an intuitive eating counselor and holistic health coach, even though, like I've mentioned several times, those are still things that I'm really passionate about and will still share about on occasion. I was feeling so much more called, and I'm still feeling so much more called and so much more aligned to being back in the kitchen and sharing the joy of cooking and eating and really just sharing a life of living freedom with food and really sharing healthy food in a way that is delicious and not restrictive. And so even though I have continued to teach cooking classes for the last 10 years, pretty much nonstop, like in every season of my life, I've taught cooking classes. I've taught them in person. I've taught them online. I've done private classes. I've done group classes. I've worked at studios. I have worked on my own. I've taught cooking classes for the past 10 years, but I haven't always talked about it because I didn't really feel like it fit with the rest of my business, which is so interesting to me. And I talked a little bit about that in A Season for Change. It almost felt like something I needed to hide because I felt like, teaching healthy cooking classes doesn't really fit in with being an intuitive eating counselor and health coach, which is so silly because it totally does. But the truth is that is what has felt aligned all along. That is what felt aligned back when I lived in Italy. When I was 19 years old, and I learned how to make my first pasta carbonara with the chef in the restaurant studying abroad, and I was like, I want to go to culinary school. I was already in school for nutrition at the time. It was a study abroad program with the university that I was in, and I was taking Italian that summer. I wasn't even taking cooking, but we got to take a couple of cooking classes, and that just solidified. I was like, I want to teach people how to eat food that is delicious and also makes them feel good. And what's crazy is that, over the last 11 years, I lost that passion, and being able to reignite that in the last year has been the most incredible thing. And even though it's been hard to let certain parts of my business go and to let clients go, I mean, they're still, like, my clients are still in my life. I very much still email them and we send DMs on Instagram. And I love hearing from my former clients and former members of the Supermama Society. And I love everything that I've done. And it was such a beautiful season in my life. And I am so grateful to have been able to share the wisdom of intuitive eating. And I will continue, like I said, to share that. I'm definitely here on the podcast. I'm sure on social media. It's just not my main focus anymore. And I think so much being able to be the host of this podcast has enabled me to find balance in my life and to realize that it's okay if what I do doesn't fit into any sort of box. I can be a recipe developer and a food photographer and a cooking instructor and a podcast host all wrapped up in one, and it can all just be under the umbrella of living the life of a healthy, balanced mama and wanting to share that with all of you, wanting to share meal planning and meal prep from a place of less stress and no restriction, and just really finding what works for you when it comes to getting meals on the table. I'm so passionate about that. And so, gosh, being able to, I hope you guys can kind of feel the smile on my face when I share all of this with you, because I have never been so excited to enter into a new season of the podcast and to enter into a new season of my business and to really be able to share so much more with all of you. And I'm just so grateful for all of you who have been here for the past, whether it's been like one episode or it's been, what are we on, episode 190 or it's the last 189 episodes. I'm just so grateful for all of you. I'm so grateful for all of your feedback as well when it comes to the podcast. Like I said, I love getting DMs from you guys. I love when you tag me when you're listening to a podcast. I try to reshare those as much as I can. I have there's a lot of mamas who have private accounts, so I can't reshare. But I'm just always so grateful when you guys tell me that you are loving different episodes of the podcast and you guys suggest guests and you suggest topics, because a lot of those are topics that are going to be popping up in season 4 of the podcast. I am just so excited to continue to expand on the concept of balance in every area of our lives. This month specifically, we only have one podcast that's really talking about food and food freedom. I'm very excited about that episode, but we are going to be diving into everything from parenting to dressing for your body. We're going to talk about Ayurveda. We're going to talk about creating systems to simplify your mom life, picky eating, and then of course, tons of topics on balance in food and fitness and beyond. And oh gosh, I've loved learning from the guests I've already recorded with in the last couple of months and that are ready to go and ready for you to listen to in the next few weeks. And I just can't wait for the ones to come, the ones that are already on the schedule to record with over the next couple of months. I'll also be bringing on more candid conversations like the one I did with my sister and my best guy friend. And there will also be a ton more Q&As because you guys told me loud and clear that you love getting your questions answered here on the podcast. And there's going to be some exciting changes to that coming up in the next few weeks that I know you're going to love, but I'm going to save some of that for my next solo episode. So I'm not going to share everything with all of you today, but I really wanted to kind of open up this episode just sharing with you, I guess, gratitude for the last several years of the podcast, the last several seasons of the podcast, and just my excitement for season 4, especially after taking just a little bit of a break that was so life-giving and so needed, so necessary after such a hard last year, especially a really hard last 6 months. And in that, like I said, I'm finding balance in a way that I've never felt before. And for me, that has meant taking a lot off my plate. It's meant taking a lot out of my business and really just focusing on the things that are most important to me. And I think will highlight the skills that knowledge and things that I think will help you all the most. And I will, again, share that with you guys in just a little bit. And it's very much meant just stripping away everything that does not matter and really focusing on the things that do. And that's meant taking a lot of breaks. It's meant learning how to sleep in instead of waking up at the crack of dawn every single morning when I need it. It has meant staying up late sometimes because I am deep into conversation with the people who are most important to me. It has meant learning how to take naps, to take time off of social media, how to read for pleasure again instead of just for work, how to dive into the things that I'm passionate about with no abandon, whether it's digging into hormone health. I had the absolute best time creating the Happier Hormones cookbook with Dr. Heather Rhodes. And oh my gosh, that collaboration was just the joy of the beginning of my summer, and I'm so excited. We have so much more for you guys to come, and I know that it is going to help so many of you who are dealing with hormone imbalances, and you really just want some guidance on how in the world do I eat in a way that is delicious and balanced while I'm dealing with hormone issues. And so, gosh, I'm so excited about that. And we've got some big changes coming up in our lives. So at the end of the month, we are going to be moving. So right now, you guys have heard me say, and it's so funny that I have to change I have to stop saying this, that we live on an island off the coast of New England, which is true. Not super far off the coast of New England, only about 2 miles. I think the bridge is 2 miles. There's a bridge in either direction. And we are actually moving back over the bridge, but in a different direction than I've ever lived before. I used to live over the bridge in the other direction on the mainland. And so we're moving back to the mainland. We're still in Rhode Island, but we're moving closer to where my husband does most of his work. Okay, I have to laugh. My husband's going to laugh so much. I had to re-record this segment because I tried to explain what my husband does once again, and he owns a sailboat management company. So most of his boats are over there, and it's just a little bit easier, and it's a beautiful, beautiful town. And so we're very excited to be moving there. And like I said, Sage is going to be starting school. Thankfully, we're close enough that Ren, our little one, is going to be at the same incredible school that she's at. And like I alluded to, there's also going to be some really fun changes to both the podcast as well as my business. So many of you have seen the changes over the last 6 months, really moving away from one-on-one and group coaching to the world of teaching online cooking classes and recipe development. And I am so excited to share with all of you that I am going to be offering full-length online cooking classes starting on September 9th. So these are going to be 90-minute full-length cooking classes available all online. So they will be available on Zoom. It's a super, super easy platform that I'm on where I'm going to send you an email with an ingredient list and the recipes ahead of time, so you can cook right along with me. You'll be able to ask me questions as we go. You can keep your video on or off, your microphone on or off. You can ask questions in the chat, just like in any other Zoom room. Or you can ask me questions if you're like, okay, is this the way I'm supposed to be holding the knife? Is this what this is supposed to look like? We're going to be able to interact with each other if you want. And if you don't want to interact with me and you just want to shut your video off and shut your mic off and just watch me cook, I'm totally here for that as well. You'll be able to do whatever feels best for you. And all of the classes are going to be recorded as well. So you'll have the opportunity to watch past classes as well if you are interested in that, if you happen to miss a class. But I am going to be sharing with you very soon how you're going to be able to jump into that. I'm going to be announcing the option to become a founding member of the cooking club, so you can join all of the classes for a really, really low rate in the next couple of weeks. So be sure to stay tuned on social media, on Instagram at Healthy Mama Chris. I'm over on Facebook, Healthy Mama Chris, also in the Healthy Balanced Mamas Facebook group, which is also getting a huge overhaul in the next couple of weeks. We are going to be introducing just some fun new conversation starters to the Healthy Balanced Mamas Facebook group, and that is going to be it's just going to be better than ever. And it is going to be the best way to connect with me over episodes, to ask questions for the podcast. And we are going to be bringing back our book club as well in the fall. So I would love for you to be a part of the Healthy Balanced Mamas Facebook group. It's totally free. It's for podcast listeners and anyone who is a part of this community. I'm just so excited to be able to connect with all of you. So that link will be, like I said, in the show notes. I would love to have you join that. And you can also join the waitlist for cooking classes, and you'll be the first to know when I open up slots to become a founding member of the cooking club. I've got some fun goodies for any of you who join the cooking club. And but then you can also just join any of the cooking classes one-off as well whenever you want to. So if you're like, I don't really want to join for a year, I really just want to join a class here and there, you're going to be able to do that. And like I said, you'll be able to watch the previous classes as well. I'm really, really thrilled about the company that I teamed up with in order to offer you these cooking classes. It's going to be so great. And I'm so grateful for 2020 and the pandemic for really just encouraging me that online cooking classes are something that I could do, because I've done cooking classes in person for so long. I wasn't sure how the experience of doing online cooking classes would be, but doing some cooking classes for a local business on Facebook and then doing them for months on Instagram has really encouraged me that it's totally possible, and it's totally possible to be engaged and to create community. And I'm just so excited about it. Cooking classes is my absolute favorite thing to do. And podcasting is a close second, but I freaking love teaching cooking classes. And I hope you guys can all see that whenever you hop on with me. I get so energized and so excited. It's like nothing else in my life. So I'm so excited about that. And in the same vein as cooking classes, I'm also bringing back my meal prep classes. So if you are a member of the Healthy Balance Cooking Club, you will be able to join any of the meal prep classes for free as well. That will be included with your membership as a cooking club member. But you can also just join the meal prep classes if you're like, I'm not so interested in learning how to cook. I'm more interested in learning how to meal prep. Then these are hour-long meal prep adventures, I like to call them. So you'll learn my pro tips as a former personal chef, for how to prep for the week in just an hour. So it's just an hour-long class. They're only $15. I'll give you all of the ingredients, all of the recipes, and just like cooking classes, you can choose to prep alongside me and ask me questions as we go, or just watch. You'll have the recording to watch later if you want to rewatch it later. And so you will end the class, if you prep along with me, with 4 days worth of dinners prepped, not the entire dinner cooked, but them all prepped and ready to go. And you'll also have a fully prepped breakfast, lunch, and snack. So in 1 hour, we're going to set up your entire week and make your entire week easier. And this is really what I talk about in Healthy Mama Meal Prep, which is also getting a revamp, which is going to launch at the end of the week. So anyone who's already in Healthy Mama Meal Prep gets that for free. It's automatically uploaded to Teachable, which is where I host Healthy Mama Meal Prep, my course. And then anyone who joins afterwards will get the updates to the course. We're adding some really important updates. And actually, the Healthy Mama Hacks sneak peek this whole month are all going to be about meal prep, because it's back to school time soon. And I know that you mamas love tips on getting your prep on when it comes to making sure you are getting meals on the table that are nourishing your family and also delicious and not taking a ton of time. And you're not just constantly calling for takeout or pulling out the frozen pizza. Both of those are awesome and great and part of living a healthy, balanced life, but I know that we don't want to be doing that all of the time, because we probably won't feel that great, and it's not so great for our wallet either. So I'm here to support you in creating delicious and nourishing meals for your family in a way that works for you. And meal prep is one of those things that I love to talk about, and something that I have been talking about since I was a personal chef 8 years ago. And I learned that I could personal chef for myself, but it didn't have to look like being in the kitchen for 6, 8, 10 hours in order to get all my meals cooked. I could just prep some ingredients and a couple things. I can learn how to prioritize my prep and really make sure that I'm just setting myself up. I'm just giving myself a head start for the week. So we're going to be talking all about that this month on Friday Healthy Mama Hacks episodes. And I have that meal prep class coming up. The next one is coming up on August 29th at 2 p.m., which is a Sunday. So put a movie on for the kids. And I do not care if there are screaming kids in the background either. I mean, if they're really screaming, it'd be nice if you put it on mute. But honestly, I don't care. I've got screaming kids too. Though my kids will be, I promise, they'll be contained in the background when I'm teaching my class. But we're all mamas, and we're all in this together, right? And so I really want this class to be a resource for you to kind of see firsthand. I think it's easy enough to teach you in a course how I do this meal prep, but it's even better and even just different to be able to actually see how I do it firsthand and to be able to ask me questions and to be able to do that alongside me. So I'm really excited about that. So if that interests you, you can head to the link in the show notes and come and join us. Space is limited because we are on Zoom, and I want to be able to see all your faces if you guys do all want to show me them, if you want to be on video with me. So space is really limited for those classes. I might open up more slots in the future, but right now I'm keeping them pretty limited. So you definitely want to join as soon as you can if you want to be a part of that. And you guys, that's basically what I've got for you today. I really just wanted to share a little bit of a life update, what's kind of going on with us, that I am so grateful for all of you. I'm so excited to jump into season 4, a little sneak peek of the season ahead. It's going to be so good. And then of course, you know what's coming up in terms of cooking classes and my meal prep classes. things. And I'm excited to be a part of this community. I'm honored to be able to host this podcast for all of you and to have you listen each and every week or whenever you pop on. I hope to see you all in the Healthy Balanced Mamas Facebook group. Like I said, there's going to be a ton of exciting changes to the Facebook group. It's where the best place you're going to be able to connect with me and other listeners of the podcast, and the best way to be able to ask questions for the podcast, which is going to be something we're going to be doing a ton more of, which I will share with you more in the future. And last but not least, friends, the way that I get incredible guests on the podcast and other women want to listen to the podcast is through ratings and reviews over on iTunes. So if you are a regular listener, or even if you're a first-time listener and you are enjoying this podcast, I would be so honored and so grateful if you gave this podcast a 5-star review and just wrote a sentence or two. It takes like 30 seconds to write a sentence about what you're loving about the podcast, and it really, really helps the podcast to be seen and heard by more women that really need to hear the message of finding balance in every area. So I am so excited to jump into season 4 with all of you. And so with that, I will catch you in the next episode. I can't wait for you to listen to it. Have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Healthy Balanced Mama podcast. If you loved it, would you take a screenshot and share it with a friend over on Instagram and tag me in it? It helps me so much to know what you love and are taking away from each episode. If you really loved it, would you hop over to iTunes and give me a star rating and review? Every rating and review helps this podcast be seen and heard by more women who need to hear the message of balance and wellness without deprivation. It's the best free gift you could give me. And as a reminder, the information and opinions on this podcast are meant for education and inspiration only and are not to be taken as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult with a trusted practitioner before making any changes. Have a beautiful day, friend, and I'll see you in the next episode.